Hello, my name is Erin Corbett Wright, Vice President, Charitable Foundation Program Manager at TD Bank. TD Bank is proud to support the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance and the performances today to open the 2021 annual meeting. Our first performers today represent Philadelphia Young Playwrights. Since 1987, Philadelphia Young Playwrights has partnered with educators to bring the transformative power of playwriting into classrooms and community settings across Greater Philadelphia. In this first piece, Tayana Allen reminds us of how complicated, vibrant, and collaborative Philly can be with her public service announcement, A Better Future for Philly.
Better future for Philly. It would be great if the future of Philadelphia had less gun violence, less black-on-black crimes, safer, positive, more lovable, more uplifting, and more brotherly love. People can go outside and enjoy their day without having to worry if it's going to be their last. Parents can't send their kids places without having to think for a split second if their child is going to return home. Everyone screams and protests Black Lives Matter when it comes to white-on-black crimes, but why is no one protesting or speaking up about black-on-black crime? Why is no one speaking up about the babies, teens, and young adults getting killed? There are parents burying their child because they were at the wrong place at the wrong time. People losing their lives before they get a chance to live. Kids and teens are losing their lives before they can even graduate. What happened to fighting it out and taking your L? My biggest fear is losing someone very important to me to gun violence. It's not just young men that are getting killed, it's also young women, babies, and moms. So with that being said, I'm also afraid to lose my life to gun violence. This is supposed to be a city of brotherly love, but it's the complete opposite. The crazy part about it all is that it's young ones doing the majority of the killings just to make themselves look hard and create a name. Philadelphia has over 100 homicides and we're only in March. Philadelphia is amongst the top deadliest cities in the U.S. Everything listed will help make a better future for everyone. There should be less grieving and more achieving. The goal I want to achieve with this PSA is raising awareness. If you agree and think this would be a better future for Philly, please help raise awareness. Don't be scared to speak up.
Thank you, Tayana, for that stark reminder of the work that needs to be done to ensure a better Philadelphia. Thank you, Philadelphia Young Playwrights, for providing a safe space and empowering our youth to dream big and build a better future through the arts. We know that it is through resilience and creativity that we together will build a more promising future. Next, Marina Hildevert envisions the vibrant future we can build together. Here is her piece, I Am.
I am. I am helpful and mature. I wonder what would happen in the future. I hear my niece saying, I found a treasure. I see someone with pleasure. I want to be successful and not pressured. I am helpful and mature. I pretend that I live in a happy world. I feel bold and not old. I touch success, but I worry about stress. I cry when I feel hopeless, and my face looks like tasting sourness. I am helpful and mature. I understand life is challenging. I say, life is like a game with levels. I dream of being successful in life. I try to have a calm life. I hope to make my dreams come true. I would feel gratitude. I am helpful and mature.
I am deeply inspired by our playwrights, as they encourage us to always continue thriving, always embrace our shine, and to always work together as we move forward.
Hello, and and welcome to the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance's 2021 annual meeting. My name is Helen Fox. I'm a senior manager at your part-time controller. YPTC provides customized accounting and financial management services for over 1,000 nonprofits of all sizes from coast to coast. Your part-time controller is pleased to support the Cultural Alliance in this event for the 16th year. During this year's annual meeting, we'll hear from the Alliance's interim president and CEO, Priscilla M. Luce, and board chair, Catherine M. Cahill, president and CEO of the Mann Center for the Performing Arts. The Alliance will also share preliminary data from their fall 2021 COVID-19 impact study. Finally, we'll hear from the incoming president and CEO, Patricia Wilson Aden. And now, without further ado, let's begin the 2021 annual meeting of the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance.
Welcome to the 2021 annual meeting for the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. I'm Priscilla Luce, interim president and CEO of the Cultural Alliance. Last year, when we gathered virtually, we all hoped that it would be a one-time phenomenon. However, this year, the Cultural Alliance also needs to respond to health guidance, as well as the needs of our members as the full reopening of the sector is getting underway. Despite the virtual nature of our meeting, this is still a celebration of our vibrant, collaborative, and resilient alliance. Before I begin, let us take a moment to center ourselves in this place and time. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. One way we strive toward that goal is by acknowledging that we are on the traditional lands of the Lenape people, and we pay our respect to elders, both past and present. I want to acknowledge the generous sponsors who have made this annual meeting possible. Their support of the Cultural Alliance is vital. We are grateful to your part-time controller, Tolsma Productions, PICO, and TD Bank for once again standing with us as we begin an exciting new year. I'm honored to address you for the last time as the interim president and CEO of the Cultural Alliance. As you know, and as our chair, Kathy Cahill, will discuss later in our program, Patricia Wilson Aden is set to become our permanent president and CEO in January 2022. Patty has long been a leader within Philadelphia's arts and culture community, and there is no doubt that she shares our vision for an engaged sector that is defined by its commitment to equity and inclusion. We are so excited to welcome her back to Philadelphia and to the Cultural Alliance. As I reflect on my time as interim president and CEO, I am proud of what the Cultural Alliance has been able to achieve. Last year, I spoke of how 2020 served as a year of challenge, change, and transition. 2021 has been an extension of that. Over these past 18 months, we have come together to communicate that arts and culture is an essential contributor to the quality of life in the region, meets fundamental human needs, and supports our diverse communities. We have drawn increased attention to the critical role of arts and culture in the regional economy and its importance in returning to pre-pandemic health and prosperity. But as much as we have accomplished, I believe we are only at the beginning of what we must do. Among our most urgent priorities, we must continue to sound the alarm about the vulnerability of the arts and culture sector to insufficient public support. Advocacy is not a short-term initiative or a one-time push regarding the city or state budget. Advocacy is a long-term engagement requiring our passion and our patience. This remains a moment of opportunity, and we as an alliance must be vibrant, collaborative, and resilient within it. We must continue to be forceful in communicating our value to our community. As we look ahead to 2022, the Cultural Alliance remains in strong fiscal health, thanks to sound management by the Cultural Alliance Board of Directors. We also continue to enjoy significant support from foundations, corporate partners, and individuals for which we are very grateful. As a member-focused organization, our expenses continue to center on advocacy, research, audience engagement, and marketing. We also continue to build upon our diversity, equity, and inclusion work, ensuring opportunity for Black, Indigenous, and people of color in arts and culture, and with the important goal of ensuring that all feel welcome within our organizations and community. This work is ongoing, and if we are doing it right and well, it will never end. Our board leadership also increasingly reflects the diversity of the arts and culture sector, as well as the Philadelphia region at large. In a vote of the membership, we will welcome a slate of new board members this year, as well as return 4 board members for second terms. We also thank 13 institutional directors and 8 community directors for their years of dedicated service to the Cultural Alliance. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank you, our members, for your extraordinary commitment to this sector. It is truly inspiring. To the staff of the Cultural Alliance, which has met the many challenges of the past year with commitment and energy, I also say thank you for your tremendous support of me and of this important transition. It has been a privilege to work with you during this unique time. I especially want to thank Stuart Adair, our Chief Officer for Finance and Administration, as he retires. He has been a steadfast leader for the Cultural Alliance, and his many contributions to the sector will be deeply missed. Last year, I reminded you that arts and culture is never quiet. I said, in fact, we roar. As we move forward together in anticipation of even more vibrant days ahead, I encourage all of us to keep roaring. It is making an impact.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ramona Risco-Benson, PICO's Director of Corporate and Community Relations. PICO is committed to supporting the communities in our service region and always seek to invest in organizations and programs that improve the quality of life for our customers. We are a dedicated corporate contributor in our region with organizational missions and issues that are aligned with our values. I'm proud to say that even in this COVID environment, nearly 1,000 employees have contributed their time and financial support as active and engaged members where we live, work, and serve as project volunteers. They've created competitive teams to fundraise for recovery efforts and giving through our annual giving campaign. In 2020, PICO made over 400 grants to local nonprofit organizations, totaling more than $6 million. This funding included support to our community partners, eliminating restrictions on use of funds or easier access to receive support. For arts and culture, this includes PICO's support for the relief fund that was led by the Cultural Alliance. We understood the need to contribute to the sustainability of the arts sector, supporting operations, staffing, and much-needed programs for our communities. And in all of our giving last year, more than 90% of these organizations aligned with PICO's diversity, equity, and inclusion values. We expect this participation number to increase to 100% with our giving expectations. Diversity, equity, and inclusion have been an important value at PICO for decades. The issues leading to broader focus on racial and social equity have suggested that we consider how to do more at our company. The realignment of our giving pillars allows us to be even more intentional. And PICO has partnered with the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance for over 10 years. This year, we are proud to fund the Fall 2021 COVID-19 Impact Study. We know that the region's arts and culture community use this research to benchmark for critical planning and forecasting strategies. We also know that funders, as well as our civic leaders, use this data to have informed decisions about funding priorities and other forms of support for the sector made. While this report highlights the continued strain that arts and culture is experiencing, we know that this sector is an important asset to our region and its recovery. PICO will continue to partner with the Cultural Alliance to champion this sector to key decision makers in our region. As a former CEO of the African American Museum, I look forward to working with my former colleague, Patricia Wilson Aden, as she transitions back to the Philadelphia region to lead the next phase and very challenging recovery effort of our sector. And thanks to all of you for what you continue to do.
Hello, my name is Kristen Vinn, and I am the Senior Manager of Data and Communications at the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. Our COVID-19 research began in November 2020, when we first surveyed arts and culture organizations about the impact of the pandemic. We've now conducted 3 surveys about the pandemic's impact, with the most recent wrapping in October 2021. We learned a lot from our first 2 surveys, including how much the sector lost in revenue during the first year of the pandemic. $372 million, a devastating loss representing more than $1 million a day lost to the arts and culture sector in our region. Through data modeling informed by our spring 2021 survey, we were able to estimate how the economic impact of the region's entire arts and culture sector was affected. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the arts and culture sector contributed a total impact of $4.27 billion to the local economy. From March 2020 to March 2021, there was a 55% decline in arts and cultural organizations' economic impact on their communities. Nearly half the pre-pandemic job force generated by the arts and culture sector is gone. In-person arts and culture audience spending saw a 77% decline year over year. Recovery seemed hopeful this past summer. Vaccine distribution had kicked into high gear, and many organizations began to reopen. Numerous organizations also received additional relief funding in the form of shuttered venue operators grants, Illuminate the Arts grants from the City of Philadelphia, as well as federal and state funding from CARES and the American Rescue Plan. But in late summer, the Delta variant created more uncertainty, and it became clear that the recovery for the arts and culture sector would be prolonged even further. To continue monitoring the region through this crisis, we sent out another survey to arts and cultural organizations in September 2021, and 138 of you participated in the survey. We know how much time and work goes into responding to these surveys, and we appreciate everyone who was able to respond. Before we look at the preliminary results, the Cultural Alliance would like to thank the Pennsylvania Humanities Council and their Executive Director, Lori Zierer. They have been our partners analyzing this data alongside staff at the Cultural Alliance. We also thank PICO for sponsoring this research and the corresponding report that we'll publish later this month. Here's what the fall 2021 COVID impact study results tell us so far. The budgets of arts and cultural organizations have dropped significantly, by 26% from fiscal year 2019 to 2021, compared to only 12% during the Great Recession. This is based on responses from organizations that participated in the survey, as well as projections informed by sector-wide analysis. This trend in decreased budgets was true across organizations of all sizes. As we established in our prior research, earned revenue is where arts and cultural organizations have been hit the hardest. For the first time in our COVID-19 research, this survey asked organizations to provide earned revenue data, and the results were startling. Across all responding organizations, earned revenue dropped by 46%. We also took a look at contributed revenue budgets for the first time, and we learned that while contributed revenue was down in fiscal year 2020, it was up by 9% in fiscal year 2021. Why? This is likely because of the relief funding organizations have received over the past 18 months from PPP loans, ARP and CARES funding, as well as additional relief funding from foundations and others. We've heard from arts and culture organizations that this funding helped them survive during 2021. But we know this is non-recurring contributed revenue as we look ahead to 2022, and the impact of that on the sector is yet to be determined. What are the current financial concerns for arts organizations in the region? Earned revenue remains a top financial concern. 3/4 of organizations indicated as such. More than half of organizations are concerned about a potential reduction in individual giving contributions, and about half are concerned about a reduction in foundation contributions. While fewer arts organizations are concerned about the possibility of closing this time around, more than 2/3 are concerned about the possibility of COVID-19 impacts on operations and attendance. While pandemic relief funding helped keep organizations running, many of them still had to make staffing reductions. Of the participating organizations who had paid staff, more than half, or 56% of organizations furloughed, laid off, or reduced work for staff and contractors. We took a snapshot look at how employment was doing in the region, comparing September 21 to pre-pandemic numbers in March 2020. The arts and culture sector is down by about 8,400 jobs, or a 35% decline in the size of the workforce. Seasonal and contract workers have been the most affected by COVID-19 job cuts, disproportionately affecting Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Last spring, 41% of participating organizations told us that they wouldn't be able to operate for more than 9 months on current earned and contributed revenue income. In our fall 2021 survey, we asked organizations about their operational status. Had you reduced or changed your capacity? Merged with another organization? Was your organization hibernating until COVID-19 had subsided? No one who participated in this fall survey indicated that they were hibernating or had shut down. However, the majority of respondents aren't operating like they were in 2019. 81% of organizations reported that they were working at either a reduced or modified capacity. 32% of them were operating at a reduced capacity with less staff and/or programming than before the pandemic. Just 17% were operating at a normal or increased capacity. The majority of participating organizations, more than 70%, received PPP loans, and almost everyone received some sort of relief funding since March 2020, including CARES funding, ARP funding, and relief funding from foundations. We've heard directly from several arts and culture organizations that relief funding has helped keep them afloat. Many of them noted that federal grant programs are the reason they are still surviving. Again, the non-recurrence of such extraordinary funding may have an impact as organizations enter 2022. Many organizations have also made a lot of budget cuts in key areas. 60% reduced marketing budgets. 60% reduced programming budgets, the core of arts and culture organizations, and many of these cuts remain. But we know that people are really looking forward to attending in-person events, going to concerts, shows, and museums. Marketing to reach these audiences will help organizations recover and contribute to the recovery of our communities and region. Arts organizations are hanging in there, but their diminished capacity is impeding the work that makes the arts and culture community what it truly is, and affecting its impact on our region, city, and neighborhoods. Based on these responses and our analysis, here are our takeaways. Arts organizations are surviving, but there is a real concern about the future, especially as one-time relief funding dries up and the future of earned income is still uncertain as patrons decide whether and when they will return. There's also a real concern about whether individual and foundation contributions can be sustained at pre-pandemic levels. Relief funding, including government funding in the form of PPP loans, CARES funding, ARP funding, and more, has been key in helping arts and culture organizations survive. However, this contributed income won't continue into 2022, and the impact of that on the sector has yet to be determined. The crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated vulnerability in the current business model for the arts and culture sector. While earned revenue and contributions from individuals and foundations are critical both during a pandemic and as the sector recovers, it is becoming clearer that government funding may play a much more critical role in the long-term health and sustainability of the sector. The arts and culture community is incredibly resilient. Despite seemingly insurmountable challenges over the past 18 months, we continue to advance our creative missions and serve our communities. This is not the first crisis we've survived. Remember, we are vibrant, collaborative, resilient.
Hi, Erin Corbett-Wright again to introduce the next performance. This spoken word performance was commissioned by the Cultural Alliance for this year's annual meeting. This piece, Jersey Drawn / Skyline in the Rear View, is from Visionary the Poet. Visionary is a North Jersey native currently residing in the city of Philadelphia. Her work has graced many platforms, from Rec Philly's very own Live Nation stage to that of Bryn Mawr College, and has been a featured/spotlight artist at Global Village Poetry Jam. As a law student, educator, and entrepreneur, Visionary brings a versatile perspective to her pieces. It is my pleasure to introduce Visionary, the poet.
When I called my first Uber in Philadelphia, I expected it to pull up with dice in the mirror. And when it didn't, I'd wondered if my career was worth everything that I'd gambled. But I sat in that Uber until I learned to stand in my fear. I remember it was the middle of August. Leaves entangled with needles on the dope-infested corners that made coroners of Cecil jaded. Hope turned lethal, but I saw the way that North Philly sidewalks outlined in chalk still paint mural arts and spring gardens. The way the roots of this city hug everything ever broken on the quest for love. The way that basketball rims lose their nets long after they've trained the new Embiid. The way that for every stolen aspiration in the 19th district, there's a pair of fresh prints. Prints blue enough to ID the rise of the next generation, cause a pain space was the same kind of place where Beanie's bars went Seagull, where Rocky's scenes went regal, where Kobe learned to hit the shot when the clock hit zero, where Wallow got it out the mud and went from cell to hero, which is to say that I've learned to change how I view a place from the passenger seat. We made our way to the heart of Kevin City just in time to notice the way that laughter gathers at the intersection. The way that Philly scrapes the Jersey slang off of my tongue and makes Ursula Rucker poetry of it. The way that John could literally mean anything from a remote controller to the very woman that you're in love with. And somehow Philly natives always know the difference. It's the way that this city refuses to reduce itself to one definition. It is Philly cheesesteaks and fine dining. It is Tesla charging stations and bike racks. It is potholes angry enough to swallow rush hour traffic, but also forgiving enough to make room for the dirt bikes. It is Mark Lamont Hill lacing his suit in Kendrick Lamar lyrics just before Professor pimping the butterflies of minds into metamorphoses. It's the sun, always managing to rise right over the morning parts just in time to Ben Franklin bridge the pain and the healing. When I arrived in my Uber, the city skyline melted my judgment silent. I dressed my gratitude in 5 stars and, well, I've been a Jersey John ever since.
Good afternoon. I'm Catherine Cahill, President and CEO of the Mann Center for the Performing Arts and Chair of the Board of Directors for the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. First, thank you to Visionary for that beautiful and inspiring performance. It is such an important reminder of why we are always an alliance and how arts and culture is such a powerful force for good in our 5-county region. Our passion, our creativity, and our commitment to making Philadelphia a better, more vibrant city is simply undeniable. And after another uncertain and difficult year due to COVID-19, I thank each of you for that. While annual meetings typically reflect on all we have achieved together, I believe that our 2021 annual meeting is equal parts reflective and looking ahead. While the data we just received is a stark reminder of how difficult the past 20 months have been, we cannot forget that this is a sector in motion. Finally, we are beginning to fully reopen. Things are different, and yes, there are still challenges and risks we face. But as I considered the words chosen to describe the Cultural Alliance this year, vibrant, collaborative, resilient, I realized just how perfect they were in describing who we are together. Our power is in our community, and our impact is most felt when we work together as one. And we know there is still work to do. Work to do on diversity, equity, and inclusion, work to do on sector recovery, and work to do on advocacy. We remain committed to all this work, and as we look ahead to 2022, the Cultural Alliance is well positioned to build upon all we have done in this past year. One major initiative that the Cultural Alliance has been engaged in during this past 12 months is a national search for a new president and CEO. First, I want to express my deep gratitude to Cecilia Fitzgibbon, president of Moore College of Art and Design, who led the search committee through a thoughtful and robust process. At last year's annual meeting, I promised that our search would be inclusive and have a keen focus on identifying a leader ready to embrace this moment of change and possibility. I can confidently say that our search committee with Koya Partners delivered on that promise. Although we considered many excellent and diverse candidates to assume this leadership role for the Cultural Alliance, at the end, our selection was clear and unanimous. We are absolutely delighted to welcome Patricia Wilson Aden back to Philadelphia to serve as the Cultural Alliance's president and CEO. Patty is currently concluding her tenure at the Blues Foundation in Memphis, Tennessee, and she will officially join us in January 2022. She brings to the Alliance deep experience and strong relationships across the city and region, given her previous role as president and CEO of the African American Museum of Philadelphia and president of the Preservation Alliance for Greater Philadelphia. Beyond her experience, Patty has long been a powerful voice within Philadelphia's arts and culture community. At such a crucial juncture for arts and culture, the inspiring and inclusive vision she has for our sector will benefit our member organizations, artists, and all participants in the creative economy. We know that under Patty's leadership, the Cultural Alliance will continue to speak to the essential role of arts and culture in ensuring both a healthy regional economy and dynamic civic life. Equally important, Patty will lead the organization in supporting our sector as it strives for greater equity and a sense of belonging for all. Truly, she is the right person at the right time for the Cultural Alliance. Before we hear from Patty, I'd like to take a moment to especially thank Priscilla Luce, who has admirably led the Cultural Alliance as our interim president and CEO since July of 2020. Priscilla has been an outstanding strategic and collaborative leader, thinker, and partner during a very dynamic and challenging time for our entire sector. She has been a steadfast advocate for arts and culture as an essential part of this region's economy and vitality. We owe Priscilla a deep debt of gratitude for her work over this past year on behalf of arts and culture. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the next president and CEO of our Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance, Patricia Wilson Aden. Patty?
Thank you for that warm introduction, Kathy. It's a pleasure to be with you for today's annual meeting, and I'm so excited to be returning to Philadelphia, and even more excited to assume the role of president and CEO of the Cultural Alliance in January. I, too, want to echo Kathy's thanks to Priscilla Luce, who has served so ably as the interim leader for the Cultural Alliance since July 2020. Philadelphia's culture sector and our organization are in a much different place than when I left Philadelphia 14 months ago. While the pandemic has continued to have a devastating effect on the arts and culture sector, the resiliency that our community has demonstrated during this incredibly challenging time is one of the reasons that I'm excited to be coming home. Priscilla, with the terrific staff of the Cultural Alliance, has positioned us well for success, and I am grateful for their good work. When the Cultural Alliance shared the theme for today's meeting, always an alliance, vibrant, collaborative, resilient, it was the word collaborative that resonated most for me. This is a sector that isn't just facing the impact of a global pandemic. It is a sector that is now fully engaged in critical conversations around racial justice, equity, and access. To be successful in addressing these challenges head-on and with the necessary self-awareness, we must commit to real collaboration, even if it's hard and even if it's uncomfortable. What I know from a 40-year career focused on cultural resource management is that innovation is rarely insular, and change is never a solo journey. From individual artists to organizations of all sizes, if we are always in alliance, we need each other now more than ever. That is why active engagement in the alliance and all of our efforts is so crucial. Collaboration cannot happen without participation, whether through member programming, marketing initiatives, research, or advocacy. Our membership drives our momentum and often spurs the ideas that transform. No doubt, the research results that Christine Vinh shared earlier were sobering and show that a full recovery from this pandemic is likely years, not months away. To hear concern from this membership about realized declines in earned revenue and potential declines in contributed revenue should give us all pause. In truth, the research only confirmed what we already knew. These times have been incredibly hard for so many of us. Uncertainty has become the norm, and while always accustomed to doing more with less, long a hallmark of arts and culture, these 20 months have challenged the creative reserves of even the most optimistic. What was supposed to be a 2-week closure in March 2020 has evolved into a near 2-year global crisis. Layer a national reckoning on race and identity over the pandemic, and we find ourselves today grappling with what comes next and how we establish new ways of creating and thriving so that we are better prepared for the future. I don't have an answer for you today and won't promise an answer right in January either. As I shared earlier in my remarks, Philadelphia is a changed landscape for arts and culture in the year that I've been in Memphis. And I want to take the time necessary to connect with you, to hear from you, and to fully understand your needs as members of the Cultural Alliance. I also want to be sure that we are thoughtfully building upon the strong foundation that Kathy with the Board of Directors and Priscilla with the Cultural Alliance staff have created over these past months. They have been in the trenches, and there have been many important lessons upon which we need to draw. There have also been many accomplishments that have helped move the needle for the sector. I want to ensure that we keep our forward momentum. Lastly, I want to be sure that we all share in our mission and vision for the sector, not just for the next year, but for the next decade and beyond. Arts and culture is a powerful force for good in this region. We must continue to assert ourselves as such, and always with equity and inclusion at the heart of our work. The stage is set for the possible reimagining of arts and culture in Philadelphia, especially in how we conduct our business. That makes this a unique moment of opportunity and one that I hope we seize together. As Kathy said, there's work to do, and I, for one, look forward to digging into that work with you upon my return to Philadelphia next year. Thank you again for the opportunity to be with you today. I'm so proud to be returning to lead the Cultural Alliance during this important next chapter. I look forward to seeing you in January 2022.